Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to round 4 of the Coach Dave Delta World Sprint Championship. Now, to address the elephant in the room right away, you may notice that we have forgotten the number 3. That is not a typo. We are, in fact, technically on round 4. In case you missed it last week, we were meant to go ahead with Spa-Francorchamps, but unfortunately, due to technical issues with the game, a lot of our drivers, particularly the GT3 roster, none of the LMGT3s were able to join the server, so we opted to postpone round 3 in favour of running it during the mid-season break. So you might see that pop up as a notification for anyone who is subscribed to our YouTube channel, which you should do, subtle hint there. But anyway, round 4 here in Bahrain. We have got a familiar face returning. Eero is back. It's good to see you, my friend. How are we feeling about tonight's racing?
Thank you, Ben. Interested to see how our drivers can do at Bahrain. It can be a tricky track at times, and the hypercars will be taking the corners a lot different than the GT3s, so it's going to be interesting for sure.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, before we go on, we do need to announce our round 2 winners. So first off, looking at the hypercar podiums, coming out is going to be Petit in 3rd place with Michel Diaz and Federico Picossi in 1st place. So really good running out of there. And we'll, of course, be seeing more fighting from the top end. From those drivers in particular, they have been races that we have consistently watched. And also, minor correction, it was Fuji, not Spa, that we missed out on. But looking as well at the LMGT3 podium from Spa, it is going to be Ian Nisbet in 3rd place, Danny Moffat in 2nd, and Alastair Ramsey, who is the crowning driver coming out of round 2. So great racing from them all, and this has resulted in a few interesting chops and changes when it comes to the standings. So Picossi leads the championship with Petit in 2nd and Philip Schliting in the other Ferrari 499P in the podium spots. And then looking to the LMGT3s, we have Danny Moffat in the 296 alongside Robert Poor in 1st and 2nd, with Alastair Ramsey in the Aston Martin Vantage in 3rd. I'm seeing a few names who consistently appear towards the top. I mean, have there been any drivers that you've been particularly interested in, Eero?
We try to follow all our drivers, but obviously I'm interested in seeing how the new guys do. We all know Danny Moffat is fast. He's gonna be at the top of the boards usually, but I'm interested in seeing how the newer folks will do, because we don't know the base yet.
Yeah, say some drivers, it's early to tell, because of course LMU, it's a bit of a different environment, and some drivers do take a little bit more time to find their sea legs, to really get acclimatized to how some of these cars handle, and how some of these racers will respond to different behaviors is going to be important. Of course, we are going to head over to the race scenario in a moment. We're going to be jumping into qualifying, but an important thing to note as well as we go trackside is that there have been some car changes. So as we go trackside, there have been some car changes. There have been a few tweaks made to the BOP for the game in some of the recent updates, and that has meant cars behave a little bit differently. Some cars were given a bit of a boost, while others were taken down the order, brought a bit more in line. And this has resulted in a few drivers opting to make a switch. Now, the important thing with that is that for the drivers who have switched, their points have been reset to 0 in the standings. So a couple of cars in particular that have been swapped into, but this is going to be a thing that changes it up immediately. Starkey, of course, the owner, and Jordan Biddle in the LMGT3s. And then in the hypercars, Nathan Perron and Paul Garnham, they all opted to change cars. Tell me, Eero, what would be the benefit of switching cars? Because part of me has to wonder, if you're used to a certain vehicle, Why would you change halfway through a season or partway through a season?
Some of them feel quite different after the recent LMU update, and maybe the drivers do not like the feel of the car anymore, or the car doesn't provide the speed they crave for.
Yeah,
It's
good point.
been, yeah, it's been with certain cars apparently they are quite a bit slower than before the update, so might be that, or might be looking to change things up.
Yeah, no, fair point there. Just the feel of the car sometimes changing with these. I particularly think in mind of how the front end feels. I know that that's quite important and really does dictate a lot of approaches and driving style choices. So if you have a certain driving style that prefers a dartier front end, of course you make the rear more planted on some of these cars with some downforce changes, it's not going to be really in a good place for you. But we do have the session officially coming to an end, and we will have a look at some of those early times just before we get into the session in full. So, early indications seem to show that Pocosi continues to be on top, Bellucci and Bouquet in second and third for the hypercars at the very least. Then looking to the LMGT3s, Lettonen, Poor and 40 make your three fastest times coming out of free practice. But this isn't really the full story, is it? It's not the full story because remember, it is just practice, right?
Yep, some people might be doing final tunings to the setups, getting those tire pressures correct, and figuring out fuel usage and such instead of just trying to do the best possible lap.
Yeah, some of them might be using it as a development opportunity. So we are now going to be jumping into qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, and we will be seeing the racers really put the pedal to the metal. Immediately, we're on board with Schlichting right now, and you can see how he's trying to optimize his car for performance. We also, once again, have the return of the picture-in-picture cam, as we have Eero very kindly providing his perspective on the events, and we'll be keeping an eye on some of the runs coming out from our GT3 roster. So, main screen coming in for the hypercars, but we also make sure that we have all of the LMGT3 action covered at the same time. Now, I'm very much looking forward to the Ferraris in particular. Now, Ferrari has seemed to be a very good all-rounder, although I wonder if the BOP update has affected that at all.
Could very well be. I personally feel the what's the fastest car, what's the meta, that's all up in the air still a bit, but definitely the BOP has been quite shaken since the update. Will be interesting to see how it affects our drivers tonight.
Well, I know for a fact that the Lamborghini, the SC63, has been pretty potent in the hands of Pocosi and Bellucci. So I don't see them making any changes. And in fact, they are going to continue to run in those SC63s as we come up to the last couple of corners of the lap. And Bellucci is going to be the car of choice, at least for me, to keep on board with as we get a bit of a live perspective on how fast these hypercars truly are. So let's jump on board. Let's see what these racers are capable of as we get things moving here. First things first, they jump in quickly out of the first braking zone and hammering through the gears all the way into gear 5 pretty much immediately as we head into the second straight. Braking just before the 100-meter board on the hypercar side. A little bit further away for the LMGT3s. They haven't got that aero advantage to really push that car into the ground, but riding the brakes a little bit, pushing their way out of the downhill into sector 2. Time looking very good with a 32.0. Now we get to the complicated midsection, and arguably one of the most well-known parts of the track, because you have to almost deceptively take a bit of a wider arc in parts of the corner in order to set yourself up for the exit and power your way out into the middle straight. all the way up to 6th gear, over 260 kilometers per hour before heading your way down into 3rd for the final sector. A little bit of an uphill incline here, so can use that to their advantage. Ride the throttle through, use the curbs as well. Feather the braking just a tiny bit. Bit of a rearward slide coming out from Bellucci here. We'll see what he has in store for us as we come through. Final runs here, final couple of corners. A little bit of skittishness on that rear axle, but first times coming in. 46.2 coming in from Federico Piccosi. Let's get that full timing tower up right now and see what the racers are showing us. That's going to be Bellucci coming through, 46.6. Piccosi dominating sectors 2 and 3. And compared to Bellucci, we were just on board with, there was a couple of mistakes going through there. Ferdinand Kerner in the Peugeot, only Peugeot, I believe, on the field, and remaining that way. But Robert Poor seems to be the car to beat, at least in this early stage of the qualifying session. 2-minute point 1. And barely being outdone by Timo Lehtinen, who just went through with a 2-minute flat. The 2-minute point 8.33. Here comes Kerner now. He's hopefully got some good pace on them there. And a 50.8. A little bit behind some of the others, but still a really solid time. How are those GT3s doing over there, Eero?
Not seeing any major surprises yet. The people are doing good times. They have got their setups in order, and now they're just pushing it. 10 minutes to set those times. We'll see how they end up.
I'll say time is of the essence here. Remember, 15 minutes is only about 5 real attempts when you exclude outlaps, and that is going to be a bit of a squeeze for some of the drivers to really get into their groove and get into qualifying. I've got to say, the Marvin Butson we're on board with right now on the hypercar side of the pitch, and looking quite skittish there. Oh, lots of slide, lots of slip angle, just losing the rear coming out of the final sector, or into the final sector, and having to quickly dart their way out of that gravel and struggling to do so. I say a little bit of a difficult moment there for one of the Ferraris, but they look very darty. The nose looks very sharp, or at least the way Butson has set it up. Seems like he's struggling to retain control.
Yeah, as said earlier, it is a very tricky track, and there are some deceptive off-camber, negative camber corners that can be really tough to get right with meaningful speeds through them.
Yeah, I'd say the tough balance is, of course, setting up particularly your aero surfaces to be that right mix of aerodynamic grip combined with low drag to get some power out of the straights, because this is quite an eclectic mix. You've got a lot of heavy braking zones combined with a lot of straights. It's a very sharp track in that regard, and that is something that the drivers will struggle with at points.
A track perhaps designed more for the F1 cars in mind. Those things have even more aerodynamics, so that they will keep nicely to the ground, but it is certainly a challenge for the GT3s and even the hypercars sometimes.
Yeah, I say struggling a little bit with the particularly powering out of some of the corners, because these cars do have mechanical grip and really good mechanical grip, but compared to basically blink and you'll burn it compounds of those Formula 1 machines, this is a vast difference. Those are basically designed to decompose by 10% even if you look at them funny. They really don't hold their life, but boy do they give insane levels of grip over a race distance. But of course, being more endurance focused, these compounds do have a little bit more of a trade-off with them, designed to be a bit longer life and also operate in a different performance window with, of course, fully cowled and full-bodied race cars, as opposed to the sort of carbon fiber carbon fiber missiles that is the current F1 spec.
Absolutely.
A few more hypercars making their way through his Borgso in the Alpine A524. Like I say, I really do like the design of this hypercar in particular, just how they've worked. Even just how they've worked the logo of the Alpine into the tail lights. That's the bit that gets me on this car. The cheeky little design detail there.
Absolutely.
But checking over with the LMGT3s, Timi Lehtonen continues to be on the top with a 2:08.33. Robert Poor half a second behind, and then just 4 milliseconds away from Daniel Moffat in the number 66 Ferrari with a .361. Alistair Ramsey not too far behind, and then a bit of a gap to Ian Nisbet in 5th. And up to the top of the hypercars, Federico Piccosi continues to impress, this time with a 45.576, a whole 0.7 of a second away from next closest car, the Lamborghini of Gianluca Bellucci, with Matteo Bocche with a 46.494, just a couple of tenths of a second behind, looking mighty rapid. Now, the thing that stands out to me is some of these sector times. Some of these sector times are absolutely ridiculous, particularly how much time is being shaved out of Sector 2, where you do have those multi-apex corners and you have to power out of the sector at the end of the middle straight. It's very interesting to see those times in that part of the track really fall down.
Absolutely, you can tell the drivers who have technical, raw technical ability easily got a lot of time in Sector 2 here.
Guys, Bouquet coming through in the Toyota, in the GR10, coming through and heading into the pits. You can hear the horns sounding from the pit lane. As drivers constantly go in and out, getting back on their out laps, but Piccosi coming through. Will there be an improvement from the Lamborghini? Not quite here. We'll hopefully catch one of the Toyotas on their out lap and just in time to head into what is effectively their penultimate run. So let's have a look on board and see what is happening. See, here's Nate Walter making his way through 300 kilometers an hour before jumping all the way down into first gear. Practically coasts the car through the first hairpin. Again, showing that the mechanical grip isn't 100%. You cannot lean on that in the same way as you would with other machinery. You've really got to take care of the car. Once it gets up to speed, that's when it comes alive, but in between now and then is where you have to be a bit more mindful. Making their way through second sector, looking good. So a few tenths of a second down. We'll check in with one of the Porsches as well on the LMGT3, courtesy of the picture in picture, as they make their way now down into almost in the same point of the circuit. This is the double apex, and you can sort of see how the times differ. They make their way down, particularly getting out on a straight line and carrying some of that higher speed through the corners. Already at the end of the back or the middle straight, you can start to see the hypercar peel away by comparison to the LMGT3. A little bit of tyre scrub you can hear in the background, but making a way through. A bit of time loss here for Nate Walter. Remember, a 46, getting a 46 is really the ideal time here, and this will be their opportunity to show what they can do. Final corner now, though. Final couple of corners. Careful the track limit on the outside. Don't want to push that too hard. Now making their way up to the start-finish line is a 47.352. New best for Nate Walter. as we also check out and see that is going to be the Porsche now just crossing the line a little bit further away. Current time remains at a 45.576, but Picossi, Bellucci in the hypercars along with Dan Wilson are going to be challenging here. So the Cadillac coming out to play here from Wilson in the Whelen Engineering red variant. I would not be surprised if a lot of fans for this car are purely for the sound alone, because listen to that thing. It is raucous.
It is magnificent.
Hey, I didn't realize that we were accompanying our racing tonight with the awakening of an American demon. Either way, Cadillac powers through. 47.997 for Dan Wilson right now. Even just getting into the low 47s will slingshot them up through the top 10. So a lot rides on this final lap. Looks like they're getting a little bit loose with the rear axle though. Struggling to keep it down. We see a few more of the LMGT3s going for a push lap. The time has officially come to a close here in qualifying, meaning that if you're in the pits, or if you haven't completed your outlap, it is game over. Lots of the LMGT3s have resigned themselves to this fate, but there are still plenty of cars out on track who are pushing. Bellucci and Picossi, who were on a lap, have chosen to abandon. But we're on board with Dan Wilson, who's just finishing his now. And let's see what he can do. Coming up to the line here, a little bit down on the time relative to the target, but still making their way up. It's a 50.2, so rough innings for them, sadly. Not going to be bringing that one home today. Last couple of cars making their way through as we speak. It's one of the Ferraris, Nathan Perron, coming through to the final couple of corners. What time will they be getting? Currently sat in 8th place for the 47.5. And as we come through, it's going to be a 47.8. So no time gain here today. And then last couple of cars coming through. There's Mika Patush. Again, up to line once more. 47.005. So new best, but not enough for a new position. With Bouquet coming into the pits, rounding off our hypercar runnings. Robert Poor is coming across the line now. You can see in both perspectives. And is getting a 2-minute .901, but just under a 10th shy of Timmy Lettonen's. Very close,
So close
indeed. So just Ramsey and Nisbet remain. And that is going to be our last few cars coming across. So what will the Aston Martin do as they round the final corner? Nisbet has not got a new time to improve upon, but up through here, there's Alistair Ramsey, 201.566. And there
Not
is
enough.
time. Not quite enough, but still a good showing from the entire field. Now, let's have a look at some of our qualifying time, shall we? So, first things first, Picossi, Bellucci, they are going to be up top in the front two. Bouquet and Schlichting in the second row. Butzin and Petouche, along with Walter, Perron, De Vries, and Holstenius, making up your top 10, followed closely by Dan Wilson, Matteo Baldinini.
Go to the grid for a race start.
Race start is initiated, and we will switch over to our new screen as the starting order is about to get underway. So there you go. There's the two Lamborghinis, Picossi and Bellucci. Familiar sight in row 1, followed by row 2 of Matteo Bouquet and Philip Schlichting in the Toyota and Ferraris, respectively. You have the two more Ferraris, this number 50 and 51 of Butzin and Patush. followed by row 4 with the Toyota of Nate Walter and the Ferrari of Nathan Perron. Row 5 is going to go to Henrik de Vries and Max Holstenius in the Cadillac number 2 and the Porsche number 4. Row 6 going to Dan Wilson and Matteo Baldanini, also in the Cadillac and Porsche. Row 7 is going to go to Richard Cook in the 99 Porsche with the Alpine of Alexander Borgso in 14th, with Paul Wallace in the BMW and Ferdinand Kerner in the 93 Peugeot. Now, looking to the GT3s, and in row 9, we have Timi Lehtinen and Robert Poor separated by just a tenth of a second, closely followed by Daniel Moffat and Jordan Forte in the Ferrari and the M4 GT3 car. Row 11 is going to be the Vantage of Alistair Ramsey and Ian Nisbet in the Mustang. Another Mustang closely following with Biddle, and that is going to be Hilal in the Porsche with the 720S freshly swapped with Craig Starkey and Gary Barham also joining in the Porsche 992 GT3. There's going to be Staging in the M4 and another Ferrari with Carl Cortis in 29th overall, with Morrison in the Porsche just behind the Mustang, and Vasilopoulos in 31st in the Porsche. But there you go, folks. That is our order, and already we are away. No time being wasted whatsoever. Let's get trackside and let's have some fun here for round 4 of the World Sprint Championship. Immediate getaway from the likes of the Lambos, and all you can see, that is going to be one of the Toyotas immediately sweeping off. That is a local yellow being called. That is going to be disaster, as that is also one of the GT3s getting involved in an incident. Kerner is going to be all the way down in 30th. Also as well, but looks like we did have a bit of a recovery. So that's Bouquet, but up to the front again. We lost one of the Cadillacs. That's Dan Wilson losing control in the first sector of the course, trying to find some space again and really struggling, but Borgso's losing a lot of time. Chaos has erupted at the front of the field, but someone has come to capitalize. Paul Wallace is already going for position challenges, making the most of the chaos that is this current field. The hypercars are setting themselves alight in a mad dash. The GT3s seeming to be much less susceptible to some of the anarchy that has happened on course, but Nate Walter is going to be the casualty of that one, and unfortunately is jumping straight into the pit lane, not having any of it. That will be a car retirement from this session. Just a single lap in, bringing us down to 15 hypercar entries and 15 LMGT3s.
The first lap is always the most dangerous.
Most dangerous one out there. There's going to be a bit of a fight and a bit of an argument between two cars here. We're on board with Hostenius as he's chasing Baldanini down and looking for a real chance to chase off here. You can see a bit of a lift and coast coming in, but Dan Wilson's going to be capitalizing. So remember, they still got to manage the energy of the hypercars, and they've got to be careful about how they deploy their resources, because push a bit too hard and you're going to get yourself in trouble. What we're seeing right here, Kerner is getting a little bit stuck in the mix with some of the LMGT3s, and I don't know, it seems like he's struggling to make his way out and back to the rest of the pack.
He's still struggling with cold tires, perhaps. So
not uncommon to have cold tires plague, particularly the hypercars in the early stages. Now, it's well known that the hypercars don't really work once you have just got out onto track, but get those tires into a good operating temp and it's like the car comes alive. The mechanical grip really starts to build on that aero platform, and all of a sudden
absolutely,
you are gaining several seconds from your cold laps. So it's got to be in that window, and in a way it's why suspension geometry and the setup of how your tyres contact the course. It's just as important as the aero.
GT3 drivers have we have Timi Lehtonen leading, Daniel Moffat in the second spot, followed by Alastair Ramsey, and they're still having a go at it with like second intervals in between at most. We will see how the situation develops. We also have some fighting further down the field. Burr is right under the back of Alastair Ramsey. Coming down the straight, we'll see if he can make a move.
You see some of the GT3s, we're just catching from both perspectives here, the move itself and a little bit from behind. That is going to be the Mustang right there, pushing for it, and is going to be quite a tough thorn in number 44 to really get in the way. You see Paul Wallace trying to get through some of this traffic. It's on the back of Ian Nisbet here, making a couple of overtakes and the start finish, and that could even be an opportunity for the likes of Bahrain to push on the LMGT3s. Back up towards the sharper end, though, we have two of the Ferraris fighting now. This is going to be Schlichting and Butzin going for an attack, not to be outdone. However, this is Henrik de Vries and Matteo Bouquet having a brief excursion into each other's firing line and almost coming into contact, at least from the split second that we got to see.
You can almost see the cars twitching at the same time, going through the same corner. They synchronized driving.
Checking back up at the top of the field as well, we have Picosi and Bellucci, practically a splitting image of the other, as the two of them are trying to push both ahead of the rest of the field and also try to outdo each other. They've got an opportunity on their hands to make a bit of a break and start to form their own prospective race. But they will be looking to extend the gap, especially as Patush is just coming up to the back of one of the GT3s and is going to have a bit of a hard time getting by in this sector of the course in particular. Meanwhile, here goes Borgso. Butzin is going to be on the challenge, and it looks like Borgso is just struggling for traction, struggling for turning. Don't really know what's happening with that Alpine, but one thing that has become clear is they have to practically be dead on straight in order to get the power down in this car. They don't really seem to have that confidence on the throttle through some of these corners. They're braking a lot more than others are doing through similar sections. You think it's a driving style?
It could be in part affecting the thing, because if you brake too much, you lose the benefit of aerodynamic grip when your speed slows down, and then it feels even more skittish through the corners.
It's almost a self-defeating cycle. You have to push the car at the limit in order to extract the most out of it. Now, while that may sound obvious on the surface, it is a case of if you brake too much in a corner, it is a positive feedback loop, because the slower you go, the less grip you have, the worse your car feels. So you go slower thinking that the car is on the edge of grip, which makes it even worse. It's very easy to get caught up in that. So you really have to be finding and experimenting with the limits to get the most out of these cars, in particular when it comes to tuning with the mechanical grip and how that interacts with the aero.
Absolutely. We have Burr and Ramsey having a go at it. I think Bob Burr has the move done.
Nicely done indeed. Now checking with a couple of others, we do have Curtis at the back in the number 44, and looks like they're struggling a little bit here as they have been going off a track, at least from what I can see, a couple of times. We have also Vasilopoulos in their own pockets, in their own respective pockets of the circuit, lapping a fair bit slower than the other cars. So we have, on average, around 202s to 204s for some of the better times. However, in the case of Vasilopoulos and Cortis, we have a 2-minute 11 and a 2-minute 29. So that is certainly a bit of a worry. Hopefully it's just where there's early days and there's nerves, but I can't help but have a bit of concern in the back of my mind, because if they're not going to start getting closer to the pace of the others, not only will they fall behind, but them driving slow could actually pose a bit of a danger to others. It's a careful tightrope to walk. Here comes Picosi, though. Going for a challenge on Bellucci. Great switchback coming out of the top corner there. Picosi's going for the attack through into the second sector now. Hangs it to the apexes as much as they can, but stays on the... Oh no, there's contact between the two. Both of them losing control and dipping out. Luckily, Picosi just stays out of the gravel, and that has afforded a golden opportunity. Mika Patush and Philip Schlichting, they're going to inherit the first and second positions. Look at them go. They're going to inherit that golden chance to get up. Now, Bellucci and Picosi, they're going to be besides themselves. They are not going to play nice after that one, because they were fighting through the second sector and effectively squeezed each other off of that track. It's not going to be an easy road ahead, especially if there is any damage that they might have contracted over the course of that interaction.
It was the tiniest of contacts. I don't think there's much damage unless they've hit anything afterwards, but yeah, unfortunate for them there.
I don't see any visual damage on those cars, so looks like they are going to be fine. However, that is still going to be a shot to the pride and a bit of a hit to the talent, as one might say, as they will now have to mentally get back in the right headspace and focus on just driving the best they can to, if nothing else, make up the time to Schlichting and Patush, who now have first and second respectively.
Yeah, that will make that a bit of a recovery race for them, but we will see if they can. They certainly have the pace to do it.
Certainly have that pace indeed, but Richard Cook is on the back of Henrik de Vries, trying to close a bit of a gap in the Porsche themselves. Now, the Cadillac has immense speed from what I've seen and what I've researched. It has immense speed, but it can get a little bit lively on the rear axle, and we're seeing right there de Vries taking a bit of slip angle into that corner at the top of Sector 1 and heading into Sector 2. It's capable of gripping up and powering out of corners really well, but it can sometimes be a little bit nervous on that rear axle. Though Richard Cook doesn't feel content with the Cadillac being the only one to take that title. Seems that Porsche is getting a bit lively under his feet as well. Takes quite an aggressive line over some of those curbs also. Practically jumping the apex a little bit.
Yeah.
All in the name of performance. We're looking around the hypercar grid. We have himself and we have Bouquet trying to catch up to Perron, who is in dealings with a little bit of LMGT3 traffic. And this is the other part that we have seen throw a bit of a spanner in the works for some of these drivers. The hypercar drivers have to get round the GT3s, and they have to do it safely. Now, GT3 drivers have been advised to stay on the racing line and be predictable. You have to be in the place that the hypercars expect in order for a safe overtake to happen, but it's still the hypercar's responsibility to get a safe move done. So you can see, for example, right here, Bouquet is darting around the racing line, letting the GT3s stay on course, and that is allowing them to quickly displace of them and get back to their own pockets of the racetrack. This can very easily go wrong, though, if someone in the multi-class doesn't quite end up where the drivers expect.
It takes patience, it takes a lot of quick decisions in a very short time period. Certainly a challenge, but I'm enjoying watching this. It's, you can almost see the drivers making these split-second decisions. Do I fight now, or do I let the hypercars pass? Do I let it go, or do I stay on my line? What do I do? And so far, everyone's been making good
sorry to
decisions.
interrupt you, buddy, but we just had a bit of an incident there. That was contact made between Dan Wilson and one of the GT3s who pushed, or tried to push, on to the outside there, and just had a bit of a moment, really. Not sure what happened on that front, but that is certainly not going to be a happy driver, as things have quickly gotten a little bit out of hand. Hopefully that is going to be Dan Wilson recovering soon. We will then find out what they can do under pressure to try and catch up.
Definitely.
Over 300 kilometers an hour being pushed by these hypercar machines. The GT3 not quite pushing the same peaks. We are still seeing about 250 kilometers being pulled out of this GT3 machinery, particularly the start-finish straight. See, Carl Whitehouse experiencing a little bit of traffic here, for example. And looking like a fish out of water sometimes. But as is any GT3, you're going to look pedestrian when you are next to a hypercar.
Yeah, they will pass you however they want to do it. So, yeah.
There is Perron and Bouquet coming together now for a little bit of a joust between one another. Great switchback by the Toyota and sticking to their confirmed line. Perron goes for the attack, but it doesn't quite successfully land. And it's going to be all guns are blazing, all full steam ahead, as he's got quite a formidable competitor that he's chasing down. Good running through the second sector and into sector 3. So Bouquet just had him wrapped around his finger during those couple of corners. I think he knew what Perron's game was and reacted almost perfectly to not only get the position back, but actually extend the gap to almost a second.
Yeah, nice move from him there.
Then we'll see a bit of a shaky situation, and oh no, that is going to be Baldanini and Butsin coming together. Oh, is that Baldanini actually? I don't know if it is. That was either way going to be a big issue for the Porsche that just got tagged on the back. Yeah, so that was Baldanini. We have the confirmation. And yeah, so in effort to try and pass the GT3, decided it wasn't the right time, but that ended in disaster as contact was made between the two. And the GT3 being a bit of a bystander in the whole thing. So pit maneuver is unfortunately the unintended consequence of that, and Baldanini's got some work to do to catch back up.
And this is the difficulty of multi-class racing. There are effectively 2 races going on the track at the same time.
A lot of different battles and a lot of different dynamics playing out, as well as how nice the other drivers can play with the other cars and traffic around the course. We're turning up to the top now. We have Bellucci Picosi having caught up and overtaken Philip Schlitting, with Patush being the only one in the firing line now. We'll see what these racers can really show us when they have a heated one-on-one battle. We're dealing with a little bit of traffic. That's going to be one of the Mustangs. But quickly dicing their way through those two. Now this is on board with Bellucci in the bumper, getting very close to the back of Patush, and the slipstream will be cutting down some of their grip. You see with a slightly slower exit coming out of the final corners, but this is where they could make up that time. 270, 280, 290, 300 kilometers an hour almost coming out here. I noticed Bellucci isn't 100% within the slipstream, so they are having to balance the cooling of the car as well as the pace in that tow. And that really is an interesting point. It is quite hot here in Bahrain. Day or night, it is absolutely roasting. The ambient track temps are going to be sky high, so you have to get a good balance of cooling as well as getting in that slipstream to reduce your drag.
Being Finnish, I would literally melt if I ever went to Bahrain.
I mean, being British, any extreme temperature and you have me immediately combust, so...
I've been to Britain once and I managed to get a sunburn.
You make a valid point.
Yeah.
I will say I'm impressed, and also, wherever you went, I need to go there, because that'll be the first time I've seen sun in a long time.
That was bright then. It was lovely.
Lovely, lovely. But tonight, unfortunately, we aren't in the sort of temperate climate of Britain. Only slightly biased there, but we are in the night arena that is Bahrain. And still, the temperatures here would match the peaks of summer, even at night time. So that is going to be something the drivers will consider. And imagine being in one of the cockpits of these hypercars in these conditions.
It must get hot in there.
Your driver cooling system, aka the water bottle, will have to be absolutely working at peak condition there.
That's what the drink button is for in the wheel.
Yep, that drink button is going to get a lot of mileage in a location like this. But Pocosi and Bellucci bring it back and forth, and it is going to be Pocosi that currently leads the Lamborghini duo, and really is going to be putting the hammer down on Patush as they're getting very close here through into the second sector. So jumping up in positions crucially, showing what they can do. Here we are, about 13 laps in now, 20 minutes in, and now some of the drivers have started to find and settle. You've got some battles up and down the course. You of course have the battle for the front, but you've also having the mid-pack for the hypercars. In the rear end of the positions, you are seeing some key position changeovers. You've got fights in LMGT3, so you've got one that could potentially be sizing up with Alistair Ramsey, although Ramsey, from what I can see, is dropping massive time. I think he's dropped off the course, or has had a bit of an incident. Yeah, where is Alistair Ramsey in all of this?
I am showing a DNF for Alistair Ramsey. I'm sorry, but I have missed what happened there.
Well, so either way, that's going to be our first GT3 retirement. I think he crashed off, of course, and sadly for him, that is going to be curtains for his race efforts. But in the interim of that, Pocosi has managed to slice and dice their way into the lead of the hypercars, and now can sort of open the taps. 47.3 best lap, with Patush just slightly behind. But can Patush go for a counter-attack? You see them dipping out to the apex and onto the inside very briefly, but doesn't commit to the move because they're too far away.
Yeah. They're just messing with the guy ahead of the guy in front, going intent, keeping them on their toes. It's all that racing psychology.
It's the mind games. So, very good point there.
You're
trying to psych each other out. And I heard once that the racing is just as much about mechanically being faster as it is about tricking your opponent into making a mistake. And I think that's exactly what Patush is trying to do here. They're trying to get their opponent to make a mistake, feel the pressure of them behind, and get too concerned with staying ahead so they outbrake themselves. Not too dissimilar to what we saw with Perron and Bouquet. Bouquet knew Perron's game, so ended up baiting him into an attack that he was able to immediately counter down this middle straight.
Yeah, we saw that earlier. Absolute beautiful move, that one.
See the psychology of the racers. And not bowing to pressure is a very important skill here. There we are. We have Pocosi. 1.5 seconds now clear of Patush. So really did show once they have an open track in front of them, they are able to just open the taps and go full bore on the time attack.
We are seeing some GT3 cars pitting. That is great stock in the pits.
Okay, yeah, so boxing fairly early, but now that does confirm we will be having some cars boxing in and out. With Starkey currently in the box, only racers to be doing so, although Patush and Schlitting have actually just gone in from the hypercar category. Kosi and Bellucci remaining out a little bit longer, and we'll see who else comes in. That's going to be Nathan Perron also doing the same. We have Richard Cook going into the pits as well. You can see the horn sounding to indicate the active pit lane, just how many drivers are going in. Marvin Butson is going in. This is Dan Wilson also joining and doing the same, along with Borgso. A lot of the hypercars coming in about the same time.
Must be running low on fuel or virtual energy at this point then.
Yeah, so you've got the energy management aspect for the hypercars, and we'll have to manage accordingly.
Yep, they start off with the electric motor from the pits, and if you go into the pits with an empty battery, that electric motor won't get you anywhere and you won't get out of the pits.
So that would effectively just be a complete race ender. Got to be using that energy wisely and also have enough in the tank to get you out of a tight spot. Meanwhile, on the LMGT3s, we saw Starkey box in. Now we have Ian Nisbet and Timmy Lettonen going in for a box along with Gary Barham. We'll also see if the rest of the hypercars are going to be following suit with their pitting in. You see Picosi and Bellucci doing much of the same. Here's Bouquet in. Will we see Henrik de Vries in the Cadillac be doing the same as he comes up to the inside on one of the Porsches? We do have a bit of push coming through here, and that's going to be one of the GT3s just ahead of de Vries. That is going to be, I believe, Borgerson coming through as well. Last couple of cars yet to go into the box. That's going to be Hostenius. Perron is back out, and in an interesting turn of events, has actually managed to get themselves stuck in and involved with the fight right at the sharp end of the field. You can see Perron having to go to the outside of that M4 GT3, challenging on, but you can see that's going to be almost disastrous. The 44 Mustang had a bit of a wobble, going very wide, and having to have Perron dip off of the accelerator just to keep car and himself intact. Matush is still going to be leading in this sort of relative field, but we will see where the others in this fight come out. As we're on board with Patush now, will he be jumped by either of the Lamborghinis? This is going to be Picosi and Bouquet out just slightly ahead. You can see there, Bouquet has gone absolutely far and has saved a ton of time out that pit lane.
Robert Burr in Jordan 40s are now in the pits as well. We have Moffat and Lehtonen having right fight out of the pit lane and into the second lap now after pitting.
So remember, those hypercars will be struggling a little bit on cold tyres. So for those who pitted a little bit later, this is a burden they have to carry. Now Bouquet is actually looking mightily rapid. I mean, look at this right now. They are firmly ahead by over 4 seconds relative to Picosi. And even then, Patush is a couple of seconds away from the Lamborghini. So
impressive showing.
It's a very impressive. It's a strategic overtake. And that is arguably more impressive in some ways, because it shows that additional forward planning. If they have planned this, if they've metered their stint to plan ahead for that and maximize the pit lane gains, that is a masterstroke right there.
Exactly. Ohilala White House now in the pits. I think that's pretty much the most of the GT3 field done with pitting.
And now we have Gosi, Bouquet, Patouche, all in the top 3 of Hypercar, and then in the lead of the LMGT3s in a turn of events it is going to be Ian Nisbet, followed by Timmy Lettonen and Danny Moffat. So 2 Ferraris in close quarters, in close combat. But this will be a fight for Nisbet to lose, as they are currently 7 seconds ahead, although I don't know if they have yet to go into the pits. Paul Wallace heading in as well for the hypercar.
Yeah, I believe Nisbet needs to go into the pits soon if he hasn't done so yet.
Yeah, this is going to be Henry de Vries chasing Cook down and hoping that Cook gets stuck on one of the GT3s that are coming up. That's the number 54 Ferrari. Using that Porsche and also opening the door for Marvin Butson to get involved here as they head through into the second sector. Now, got to keep gripped up and got to keep the attacks nice and sharp. Here comes the Ferrari onto the inside of Butson here. So that is going to be De Vries on the defensive. Contact being made. Butson has no choice but to yield and come back into the fold, as there will not be any chance of recourse for him right there. A little bit of slip angle on the Cadillac, though, prevents a better exit. And all of a sudden, that Ferrari is brought back into this and will still be a key competitor for the position. Remember, this is a fight for 7th. And this will be one that continues for a good long time. We do have a yellow flag being called in one sector of the circuit. We're just trying to get more information about exactly what has happened. Cortis is into the pit lane, meaning that almost everyone has now gone in for a pit stop. With a very good exit. And De Vries, again, struggling to get that power down. This is going to mean that Butson does have a chance here, is closing that gap. Will they go on the attack? Doesn't quite look like it. And oh no, De Vries has lost control. He tried to go on the defensive, didn't quite get that car under control by the braking zone, and effectively locked up and spanned their car.
Unfortunate from them there.
Tough innings there, and so that Cadillac proving to be a lively, fast competitor, but one that you have to tame. So now Holstenius is going to be on the receiving end of De Vries' attacks, but that is going to be something that he will have to contend with in literally a couple of corners at time. Holstenius already feeling the pressure with De Vries, not only a fast driver, but a very annoyed one, I imagine, here, having made that mistake completely of their own volition.
Yeah, it's part of the racing psychology is also moving past those and not trying to gain time by pushing or overdriving the car too much. You just have to get back in the mind state of doing your laps and then just doing the laps. And it can be very hard sometimes after events on track.
We do have reports here that is going to be Evangelos Cortis as our 3rd retiree in net 14th with the LMGT3. So had an incident, and then them peeling into the pit lane was them actually retiring, so organically retiring, quote unquote, meaning that we will see 3 cars now retiring out in this session. We also did see one of the Porsches heading into the pits. That is going to be Vasilopoulos going in there. We'll of course see what is the game with that, but Picosi now scything their way through some of this GT3 traffic. Vasilopoulos yet to pit.
Could be. Heavily sitting in their box, looking for more fuel. we have Robert Burr wanting to get past Jordan 40, but some hypercars are showing a wrench in the mix, so it's not happening, at least not yet. But he is right back on that BMW rear bumper.
So we have a little bit of close quarters driving, not necessarily as aggressive as we've seen in the start of the race, and through some of the incidents that we later saw from it, I think drivers are not feeling scared per se, but they're being a little bit more aware of their track surroundings. Now, we are still seeing some sort of wheel-to-wheel driving, but a little bit more picking of the moments, so knowing when they can get significantly alongside, as we're seeing with Dan Wilson. He's on the side of Bordenini. They are making contact. No, unfortunately, a bit too much of a squeeze alongside. Wilson does go back, though. He's not going to commit too hard to that attack, and luckily was able to make a very quick recovery. In fact, he's going to go for something once again, this time into the final couple of corners. Even if he doesn't intend, he's forced Bordenini into a defensive spot, and that is the time to strike. A little bit of slip angle from Matteo, and that's all she wrote. Wilson into 11th here. Nicely done, and good psyching out of their opponent. Again, goes back to what you said earlier, Eero. It's the mind games. It's throwing a spanner. However, big dive from Bordenini. Very early braking from Dan Wilson, and that opened the door for an immediate counter. You can see that was easily 3-4 tenths just made up in a single braking zone. Wilson already on the defensive and having quite a time trying to go on that counter.
What a move. It's
quickly bricking himself back into the vault, but here goes Wilson. That was a little bit of an odd line there, but Bordenini quickly swiping through. And oh no, contact! They caught the rear bumper, and both of them are round. That is Borgso barely avoiding catastrophe and threading the needle, with Bordenini quickly recovering and getting himself back onto the racing line. Well, that is Wilson, unfortunately out of luck. The two coming together, just corner catching corner, and that is going to end in tears for some. Look up to the front right now. There's going to be the trio of Patush, about 2.5 seconds behind, but then Pocosi and Bouquet are running very close to one another. Pocosi's been slowly gaining up that time, remember, at 1.4 seconds. Now thoroughly eclipsed just through that pace being on full display, and that consistent pace as well. You then have a couple of opportunities for Pocosi to go for some moves here through these corners, but he's opting not to take them. He's taking his time a little bit more. Out onto the outside, turns 9-10. That's going to be a bit of a switchback, trying to get on the power a little bit earlier, and it does actually get quite a good exit here, so pulling up alongside down the middle straight. Now heading into the long sweeping left-hander, a little bit of anti-camber, but not going to stop him as Bouquet goes a little bit wide on the defense and trying to yield the space. Pocosi making quick work, and a nice move through some good positioning into first place. Leader of the hypercar class, newly crowned. However, not to be outdone.
Well done to him.
Not to be outdone, though, we have Ian Niesbet, who is still up top and holding Timi Lehtonen off from taking top honours, despite having peak performance and peak laps slower by about a second to Lehtonen. Niesbet, I think, is just going to be doing a good job of defending this whole thing.
Yeah, good defensive driving from him. It's nice to see. Nice to see battles happening. The GT3 field looked a bit settled down there for a while, but it seems our drivers are not quite yet done fighting.
A little bit of calming down around some areas of the field, but that is not going to be stopping much, as we do see. That is going to be Niesbet now heading into the pits. Lehtonen is going to re-inherit the lead of this race for the LMGT3s. But in the sharp end of the hypercars too, we have Mika Patush and Matteo Bouquet now challenging each other for the right to second place. And that Ferrari has tried to catch up a little bit. I think Bouquet is struggling with that Toyota, just trying to keep the confidence up. And of course, being overtaken by Picosi was a bit of a blow to said confidence. But now's the time to show us some defensive driving and what they can muster out of that GR10110.
Well, Bahrain and Starkey are in the pits, along with Moffat.
Okay, so a couple of second stops coming out from the LMGT3s here.
I think some of the LMGT3s might not have a big enough fuel tank for to do a one-stopper. Perhaps.
Well, either way, that's going to be a spanner in the works for the strategy, especially because now they are going to effectively be running in a separate race, similar to what we saw with the first stop. It's also trying to keep track and think about who had stopped in by that point and recognizing, are they actually part of this race or not? It's that juggling act that they're having to work through. But we are about 20 minutes out from the end of the race. We are 2/3 in, and so far Picosi, Bouquet and Patush make your trio in the podium spots for HyperCar, and Timo Lehtonen, along with Robert Poor and Jordan Forte, are your trio leading the LMGT3s, mingling in with some of the HyperCars and certainly showing their pace in full force out on the course today. Check around and up along with down the field. One thing I am noticing is Vasilopoulos in the number 92 still best time of just a 2:10.998, so is having to be careful. Now I wonder what is going on in their camp. Do you think it's to do with maybe the confidence in the car, or is there maybe something wrong with that Porsche I think they're running right now?
It could be some early damage received in the race. Sure, because him catching any, I'm sure. But he hasn't been involved in anything after. And, he's doing his laps. So, yeah.
Oh, here we go. As I say, Patush got an opportunity. Bouquet going a little bit wide, coming out the final corner. The Ferrari has peeled ahead. Will there be any kind of counterplay coming from the Toyota? I don't think we're going to be seeing it, as that is the number 7 relegating itself following a bit of a costly hiccup into the 3rd spot. I think you could be right in that there might be some damage affecting that car. I think as far as driving goes, there certainly could be more push on the table. And with some of the corner speeds here, maybe as well, could be just the car isn't set up confidently underneath them. Now maybe that's just why they don't want to push as hard as they possibly could in some places.
Starkey and Bahrain out of the pits and immediately resuming the battle they were having before pitting.
There. I'm almost drawn to the sort of picture-in-picture. I've got it in the same time on my screen, and I can't help but watch and get a little bit distracted when some of these GT3 battles kick off. Like, I've been glancing down and trying my best to behave, keeping my eye on the hypercars, but I can't look away from some of these battles that have raged on in some cases for multiple laps. Although we are seeing a bit of a similar story happen with the hypercars. We had the likes of Dan Wilson and Borgso running very close. Cook and Holstenius do much of the same in the Porsches. And then we've had a couple of squabbles between some of the Lamborghinis and the sharper end of the field.
Timo Lehtonen still leading with almost 6-second gap to Robert Burr. Impressive performance from him there, and Speaking of impressive performance, as Robert Burr only recently got past Jordan Foley, and he's managed to get 3-second gap between them already. Very fast driving from him.
Looking mighty rapid, but as things currently stand, nobody's going for massive dive moves per se. We are just seeing some drivers going through the motions. We just saw Paul Wallace there yielding. Of course, blue flag rules do apply. And say credit to some of the other traffic on the course. Done a very good job of just retaining to the space and making sure that the track surface is available for those who are challenging our other positions. So very good sportsmanship and great driving standards we are seeing from at least the perspective that I've been able to catch. We have had a couple of times where drivers have got a little bit too close for comfort, and of course that has resulted in tears and a couple of collisions. But by and large, with slower traffic and lapped cars, there hasn't really been much in the way of an issue.
Yeah, generally very good awareness of traffic and other drivers on track being shown. It's nice to see.
Very impressed with that. And then say, impressed as well with Bellucci, who went for the move into the final corners against Bouquet, pushing him down into fourth. Now meaning that the two Lamborghinis hold first and third in the podiums, with Pocosi now breaking out 5.6 seconds relative to Patouche at this current moment. Absolutely rapid here.
GT3 side of things, we got Jordan Biddle chasing after Reda Ohilal. With over half a second behind on the straight. We will see, but the slipstream gets them. That is a 10th saved off from in the wall. 2 tenths. Biddle probably not close enough to make a move.
Yeah, I think safe to say at this point we are seeing a lot of the field start to stabilise, particularly with the GT3s. Short of the battle between Uhilal and Biddle, we aren't really seeing the amount of challenges. Oh no!
A bit of contact.
That is not looking good there. That is Biddle.
Uhilal's made a good recovery though. They are resuming their battle.
Biddle and Uhilal. So we're going to bring that to the main screen. I saw that in the corner of my eye. And quick dicing. See, I think flashing coming from the Porsche almost as a signal of intent of, let's say, frustration in a way. As there you go, there's going to be the Mustang quickly darting to the inside, trying his best to challenge back. Of course, not happy that a position was gone through contact. Want to fight for this properly on track.
I believe Biddle gave the position back because he kind of got it there with a bit of box and pass move. Unintended, I'm sure, but they had a little touch there. Oh, and Nisbet's getting in the mix now.
Yeah, that's brought Nisbet into the fold right here, so really showing a bit of a squabble, a trio coming now through. And this is going to be Nisbet making not one, but 2 decisive moves in quick succession, although it does extend a bit off the track. Was a little bit too deep onto that one. Will we see a counter coming in? Ooh, bit of bumping. Biddle and Uhilal contact. Careful with one another. Play nice. Now, final couple of corners. Looks like Biddle's managed to get away. Uhilal is still flashing, it looks like. Again, sort of signalling a bit of frustration there. But
so it would seem.
Back on to the fresh and narrow. As now the hypercar field has thoroughly displaced itself. Closest gaps you've got are the likes of Bellucci, Bouquet, Schlichting, who are all within a couple of seconds, but a lot of the field has started to just find their own pocket. They've evenly displaced themselves around the track. So 10 minutes to go. Things looking like they are mellowing out.
It might be the quiet before the storm, before the last final attempt.
Here is the calm. And here is the impending storm coming through. So Biddle and Nisbet soon could be coming together. I don't think HyperCar is going to see much of the action that we're maybe hoping for. However, we will still have plenty of chopping and dicing amongst, say, GT3 really is the place to look, I think, for a sort of closer quarters encounters, as we do have Patush and Butsin now going into the pit lane and are going to be what looks like getting a splash and dash going. Just getting what they need to make it those final 10 minutes.
Yeah, the double fuel usage and double of tire usage isn't easy on these machines. They are very thirsty boys.
Well, as to be expected of effectively some of the fastest full-bodied racing machinery around.
Absolutely.
Quick sweep around the side. That's De Vries.
Nice move from De Vries there, and nice move from Danny Moffat, getting past radar there. We have Perrons heading for the inside, and race is being made.
The Perron is going to be quickly getting their way round.
And there goes the hypercar.
Not as succinctly, but this actually has given an opportunity for Perron to now challenge on to De Vries' position. This is a fight for P8 here in the Hypers, and looking like a very nice move coming into the second sector for the Ferrari of Perron. Does De Vries have much of a response? Let's see and find out as we head through down to the bottom end. They're going to be coming up to the back of Kerner in the 93 Peugeot, as one of the GT3s is going to be coming out to the sort of outer arc of the circuit. That's going to be Jordan Biddle. De Vries actually getting stuck behind him, and that is going to be a crucial time loss for the Cadillac here. We have a yellow flag briefly coming out. Looks like we have Baldinini, who has just DNF'd here. Just got the info they have DNF'd. So that will be our fourth retiree and our second hypercar retiree in this session. And unfortunate, as it looks like there's only just a couple minutes to go. Well, just a few more laps and they would have made it home. I have to wonder what happened. This doesn't have the typical limitations either of saving the car, because you of course get the fresh car pretty much every session. So I have to wonder exactly what happened. Did they get into a little bit of trouble on track? Of course, we'll maybe find out in post after the fact.
Perhaps maybe the car was undrivable at that point. I don't see much other reason to DNF at this point. Just it's 8 minutes left. Stick through it, get the points.
Only a bit of a technical hiccup, or whatever else it could be. One can only speculate until we hear from the driver themselves. But Picosi, Bellucci, Bouquet all heading in now. And this could be a chance where we have Patush and Perron, believe, who were the ones who headed in earlier. Or also Schlichting maybe. Either way, they do have a chance to get things back up in their favour now, as they are now coming up to the back straight and heading into start-finish. Going to be a quick sweep through. Question is, will they come out in the right place as they remain out on track? Here it comes down the start-finish line. Trying to undercut the competition just a little bit. Will it be enough, though? Doesn't quite look like it, unfortunately. Is going to be Bouquet and Bellucci coming out very close together. In fact, going to be starting a fight all but immediately, with Bellucci on the aggressive early push to try and get 1-2 for the Lamborghini suit.
Since we have Robert Burr getting into the mix with Bahrain and Biddle fighting for the 10th spot. This has been a boon for Biddle. Gary has lost some time letting Burr pass there.
Very nice, and even in the back of that shot, you can see the fight between Bellucci and Bouquet very cleanly done from the Lamborghini to get himself around through turns 9 and 10, and now confirming it through the following sector, already pulling out about a half-second gap, although, oh no, that's Bouquet! You just saw him in the back line sweeping far too much speed, and quickly having to scramble to get their car back on course. Luckily, no contact made with any debris or any walls, so virtually zero damage at most. Looks like they're going to get a little bit of flat spotting, but saved it actually quite gracefully.
Yeah, well done. Not smacking a wall. Could have been a lot worse.
It almost looked like they pulled their car back in mid-spin, and even if it was a little bit of a shaky turnaround getting back onto the course, they did hold a lot of their momentum. So credit where it's due. So that was almost a bit of a turn right to go left moment for Bouquet there in the number 7. We have 5 minutes left.
I don't usually like the Scandi flick, but this time it has worked.
We have also just got a bit of a notice that in the top corner of the screen to say Kerner was handed a penalty. I've yet to define the exact source. I'm assuming that is being too aggressive with the track limits and being cut short by the on-track stewards. Of course, we do have our own stewarding as well, and penalties do get applied retroactively post-race and added to their SimGrid standings, which of course check out the SimGrid if you haven't already, because that's where you can get all the latest details about the standings, championship, the results, any penalties that came through, as well as per race results. Anyway, 5 minutes to go. Looking quickly at the GT3s as Pur and Lettonen could have a chance to come together. Around them, the GT3s continue to try and push on a gap. As Dan Wilson, in this case, is trying to close up into Wallace in the M Hybrid. And the GT3 cars have also got a couple of squabbles of their own. In this case, it's Bahrain v Biddle.
Yep. No hypercar in the mix this time. We'll see if Bahrain makes a move.
Going to be chasing as much as he can here, but down through into final corners. And already darting to the inside. That is going to be Biddle trying to get on the defensive, remove any real avenue of attack from the Porsche that they can. So defensive driving, certainly going aggressive on it early days. You have a yellow flag coming out as well, trying to get to the source of that now. Unable to detect the exact source of it, unfortunately.
Perhaps a slight off track from somebody. I'm not seeing anything on this end as well.
Yeah, maybe a slight off track, but leaders of the GT3 class as well could be getting quite close. I think that is going to be Pur and Lettonen. Also challenging. Bahrain and Biddle will continue to be a battle that we might have in the back line, but we've got to keep eyes as well on our leaders, as we could see a last-minute changing hands.
Yep, it all comes down to these last 2 laps. Pur has made an impressive race, I think. He was down in the 6th or 5th place at some point, and he's managed to climb back into the 2nd spot. Very impressive driving from him. And also Timi Lehtonen starting the race in the pole position and finishing the race with pole position. It takes consistency and it takes a cool head. But we will see if...
Managed this very well, I'd say.
He has. We will see if he manages it 1.5 more minutes.
Here we go. Either way, this is going to be the last couple of minutes here, and it looks like Pocosi is going to, at this rate, just be able to take the spot. Although Bouquet is going into a box. We do see the yellow flags, the local yellows coming out for an off-track. And we see the two Lamborghinis almost as if reunited over the course of a race. They started P1 and 2. They had a little bit of jumping up and down the field. And in the end, they will be reunited once more. So again, a couple of yellows coming out for drivers who are running slow or running off track, but 30 seconds to go. I'm not sure if Pocosi could just about make the start-finish line, because of course if they do, that will be one last lap and a saving grace for some of the GT3s who are looking to challenge for final position.
Yeah, this could swing things for a couple of races. Probably most important for Robert Burr.
Yeah, last couple of seconds here. It's going to be close. I think Pocosi isn't going to quite make the start-finish line. That is timer over. And that is going to be game, set, and match for Federico Pocosi. Gianluca Bellucci lining up in second place as the GT3s are also going to start making their way through. Pocosi, Bellucci first, second, Patush going into a nice and neat third for the hypercars. Then looking towards our dueling leaders, we do have an interesting sight as we have Forte a little bit further behind on course, but fight remains sharp in the GT3s. They're going to be going to the bitter end. Lettonen on the defense. Poor trying to close the gap, try and making up the time as best as one possibly can, but I think Poor's trying to overdrive the car to make that last ditch opening.
They are hot on the heels of Lehtonen, but is it close enough?
Close enough is going to be the question mark, and I don't know if it's going to happen unless Lettonen messes up this final corner. He goes defensive and a little bit narrower on the entrance, prevents any kind of moves that Poor could make, and just like that, that is going to be Timi Lettonen coming up to the line as the winner of LMGT3 for tonight's round. Robert Poor just behind in second with a great hard-fought battle. And Jordan Forte into the third position here. Great stuff here. Well done.
Great racing from all involved.
And that is where we are going to draw this session more or less to a close. Last couple of cars are still on the track, but that is session done. And now let's have a look at the results of the race, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a great one, but in the end, one driver must be crowned per class, and in the end, it is going to be Pocosi taking the win for the Hypers, and in the LMGT3s, Lettonen is your winner here. Now, hopefully, we get a chance to talk to the first and second place finishers of each respective class. But how did you find that race, Eero? I absolutely loved it.
That was exhilarating. The racing was close. It was hectic, full of action. The multi-class aspect really brings out the best and the worst in all our drivers. Yeah, that was great stuff.
Well, there we go. So that is where we're going to draw at least the race coverage to a close, but this is where we can also hopefully get a chance to talk to some of our drivers. Now, I am, calling up the two finishers, so first and second place for interviews potentially. If we don't see some of them, then we will bring in third place as well. But so there you go, the ping is going out. Letonen is already in there. We're going to give it a couple of minutes to see who else shows from the finishing order. But what a race that has been, folks. Great stuff to see from, of course, all the drivers, and we do have much to talk about. I think we are going to be, first off, getting a chance to talk to Letonen while we wait for some of the other drivers. Let's get him in here. Let's get his perspective. I can't drag him in. I cannot drag him in. Oh, unfortunately, we have just got word that Pocosi is feeling under the weather. He's not actually feeling great. Sick and doesn't have a voice. So, I mean, first off, you won the race while being ill? Okay.
That's very impressive.
Do we have even more pace on tap from the Lamborghini driver? I guess we'll find out when he's back to full health. Either way, we do wish you getting back to full health swiftly, my friend. And amazing performance.
To you.
Amazing performance out there for it. I think what we're going to do, folks, is we are going to jump into the interview waiting room, and we will have a chance to talk with both Patush, by the looks of it, as well. We'll get the third place for the hypercar, as well as, of course, Letonen, who is already waiting and ready in. So let's jump over and let's see.
I will see you there.
All right, guys, we've jumped over to you as we couldn't drag you in. Can you both hear us?
Yes.
I think you said that at the exact same time to where it sounded like one voice. That was interesting.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, so I'm gonna say Letonen. We're gonna have a chat first, and then Micah will also have a chat to you just after. We'll bring you in for a bit of the discussion. So, Letonen, first off, GT3 winner. Congratulations. How are you feeling coming out of that race? Of course, Bahrain, bit of an interesting circuit. What was your thoughts of that whole race weekend?
Miltä nyt tuntuu?
Pretty good. I went to it with not many expectations. I mean, I learned the track yesterday. I have never driven the track, and I didn't have much motivation as well to practice. So it was like, yeah, sub 50 laps or something in total, or even less than that actually. But yeah, it all went to plan. Now I'm actually learning a bit how the pit stops work. You can see from the first race, it's a bit of a step up, but yeah, I still don't know why I'm using quite a lot more energy than the other Ferraris. It was like 10% at some points, but still it worked out fine. And yeah, pretty happy, more of these. And yeah, hyvältä tuntuu.
Yeah, good to hear. Impressive showing tonight, certainly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, the one thing that did stick out to me is, like, you say that, but you still really did a good job out there tonight. Because, say, pole position for the LMGT3s, and you carried that all the way through. Was there a particular moment where it clicked for you, like where that thought process changed from having no expectations to thinking, maybe I could win this race? Was there a particular moment where that happened, or was your race sort of a just go in, see what happens, and then get, in this case, get very surprised?
Yeah, no, it was, I didn't really have any expectations until the point I saw in qualifying I was P1, then I was like, okay, maybe could get something out of this. But yeah, today in practice the car felt pretty nice. I could feel everything it was doing, and the track felt nice. Like I had learned how each corner goes and kind of what you need to do for them. So I mean, it felt good from the get-go. So I had an idea it could go well, but not this well, let's say.
Oh, you certainly surprised yourself, I think, in all of that. And with that result, I think there's also going to be a healthy jump in championship points in the standings. I think you get put technically on the podium after this one.
Yeah, possibly.
It's the championship. You're going to be a championship challenger throughout the rest of the season, because, I mean, 3 races in. I'm not going to call them rounds because the numbering is confusing. Of course, last week didn't quite go to plan. But are you looking at a championship contention this season? Because you're currently 5th and likely jumping into the podium with tonight's result.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. The E1 is always the goal for me, and same goes in this championship.
Oh,
well, I, for one, am very much looking forward to seeing it. I mean, Eero, any questions from you, my friend?
Yeah, if I could ask you quickly about how you felt about Bahrain as a track, and what was your favorite corner, and what was the corner you did not like?
First 2 corners I hated. It's every time you break into that, you have no idea if you're gonna hit the apex or go really wide or whatever. It's like you break at the same place but still end up in the middle of nowhere. And my favorite corner is probably the which one is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think the hairpin before the SS.
Yeah.
That's because on the exit you can really feel the car and play with the car, and it's like the braking feels nice, and then the exit you can get it quite smooth every time. And I think that's what I like about the track in general, is that it's very smooth and very like wide. So it's up to you to kind of handle the car, and it's not so much about where you are on the track, as long as you have the car in control and, like, you know, can move it around.
Yeah, good answer. Thank you.
Lovely. Oh, I say I'm gonna let you go, but thanks for taking the time to chat to us, and looking forward to seeing you on that championship.
I'm just gonna head to Torille real quick. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, have a nice evening, guys. See you on the next round.
Yeah. So see you there. Hopefully.
See you at the marketplace.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
See you guys.
See ya. You have a good night.
You too.
And then that brings us over quite neatly to Mika, or Mika. I have no idea pronouncing it. I'm probably been butchering it this entire time, and I want to apologise for that if that's the case. But
all good.
But how did you find that race? Of course, P3 finish, and say looking quite strong a whole lot of the way through. I mean, did you have expectations going into tonight?
Well, not really. Like, I know the track from the Formula 1 games. I played them quite often. But yeah, didn't really know where I would be in the race. Yeah, it was just look and see where you are, and I ended up quite in a decent spot in qualifying, and then was able to capitalize on a bit of carnage in turn 1.
Yeah, as I say, you got a healthy little leapfrog out of that situation that happened in the first couple of corners. One thing that I am curious about is sort of the strategy that you took into tonight. I mean, did you have a pre-planned strategy, or was that something that was more just flexible to how you were doing with the energy and the tires? Because one thing I picked up on is that in terms of timing, compared to some of the others on the field, your pit stops in particular were sort of out of sync with a lot of the others.
Yeah, my strategy was like just flat out and try to maximize my pace. Yeah, because apparently the Lamborghinis were just in a league of their own in front. I was just able to be close to them because they were fighting. So there's definitely something that I need to work on. But yeah, was just trying to be flat out all the time. And just pitted when my energy was running low. And I also felt that my energy usage was quite a bit more than from the leaders. Yeah, I don't also know the reason for that. So
Well, say it worked out quite well in the end. Either way, it's you were able to maximize that pace and keep in contention with some of the others on the field. But I guess sort of final question before I pass it off to Eero is in terms of the wider championship. So just looking quickly at the standings, because currently, from what I can see, if it wants to load for me, apologies. So we're sitting currently down in P16, but tonight's P3 result, that is going to rocket you up in the standing order. But my question really is, do you feel out of the calendar that there is one track you are looking forward to, or one track that you think you're going to perform particularly strong in?
yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Le Mans race. It's like my favorite track out of all the races on the calendar. I really like the track. I've also been there in real life like 3 years ago.
Oh,
So
wow.
really looking forward to it. Also night race like today. So special occasion as well. And yeah, I'm gonna practice a lot to maximize the result in the end.
Awesome, awesome. Well, that's all from me. I mean, a brilliant result out there tonight, and I say hopefully see you in the commentary box a little bit more over the course of the season. Eero, any questions? Over to you, buddy.
yeah, we'll go with the same one as last time. How did you feel about Bahrain, and what was your favorite corner, and what was your least favorite corner?
Yeah, personally, I'd say the track is it's one of the better ones, even if it's like more like modern with very wide runoffs and stuff. So yeah, I like more of the traditional tracks, like the Nordschleife, even if it's not in the game. But yeah, like self-justifying track limits. It's
A man of
really
taste.
entertaining. Yes. Yeah, like my favorite corner on the Bahrain track would be after the straight in the middle sector when you go up the hill, the left and right, which is like in the hypercar, very high speed. You can really feel the downforce, just minimal lift. Yeah, it's just awesome. And
yeah.
my least favorite corner would be I think it's turn 10, like the downhill sharp left in the middle sector.
Yes.
Yeah, the double apex, right?
Yes, yes. It's like very hard without the ABS getting the braking point right. But I also have to say in this race it was not quite a problem, but yeah, still quite didn't get the apexes right.
Yeah, you managed well in this race.
Thank you.
Well, either way, it's brilliant to have you on, and as I said, hopefully we'll have you in here soon. I'm gonna let you go, but take a well-earned rest after a great round.
Thank you so much. Also, thank you for the stream. And also, shout out to my teammate Marvin, who finished P4 in the end. And also, thank you to my team Metal Motorsport. Shout outs to them also.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you for putting on such great racing. But yeah, so we're going to head back to the commentary channel, and you have a great night, my friend.
You too. Good night. Bye bye.
Good night.
All right, so we are back in the commentary channel, and just sort of final roundups before we go. I mean, for one, next time we are going to be heading to Monza. So that is going to be quite an exhilarating experience for all of us here at the GRDC and here the World Sprint Championship. Of course, we have got plenty to discuss, and the standings will be updated shortly after. But just let us know in that live chat if you're watching at home who you've been watching, keeping your eye on. Of course, if you have been enjoying the stream, then give it a bit of a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And we are going to reel it off at the end of the screen, but I wanted to raise a special thank you to everyone who's been supporting us on Patreon as well. Some of our Patreon VIPs we're going to have on screen at the end here, but you do want to support us and what we do here, then consider jumping on over, because everything goes into making the racing, production, everything A to Z just that bit better, whether you're a participant or you're watching here at home. But that's going to be it for us, folks. Thank you very much for joining. We'll see you next time out over in Monza, and good night from us here. Coming out of round 4, we'll see you for round 5 next week. Goodbye.
Thank you and good night.